Agriculture is forever developing and improving. Some of these developments come in the form of new plant varieties, especially adapted to certain conditions or to boost yields. But as we are all aware, with innovation comes competition. Therefore, to protect this intellectual property, breeders can obtain a plant breeder's right. David Cochrane from Spoor Fisher discusses the ins and outs of this process with us. But first, here's Lisa with the latest agricultural news.
Syngenta, bringing plant potential to life.
In today's news, macadamia processors and handlers recently indicated a 2021 crop forecast of 54,174 tonnes of dry nuts in shell. This represents an increase of 11% since 2020. A report by Macadamia South Africa says that although a bumper crop was expected, unseasonal frontal rains resulted in significant flower blight infections, which in turn affected nut set. Most production regions also experienced increased damage due to Tortrichidae moth complex. This is expected to have had a considerable impact on various cultivars. And according to a media release by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, a total of 451 rhino were poached in South Africa in 2021. Of these, 327 were poached within government reserves and 124 on private property. This reflects a 24% decrease in rhino poaching compared to the pre-COVID period of 2019. There has, however, been an increase in poaching on private properties. In 2021, a total of 209 rhinos were poached for their horns in South African national parks, all of these in the Kruger National Park. This represents a decrease compared to 2020, when 247 rhinos were poached inside national parks. According to the department, the steady decline in rhino poaching in Kruger Park is related to an increase in the intensity of anti-poaching activities. And the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry's Business Confidence Index rose by just over 2 points in January to end on 94.1. This represents a decrease from January 2021. According to a statement by Agbiz, this serves as an indication that business confidence remains fragile. The Chamber of Commerce and Industry said that the increase meant a reasonable start to 2022. Confidence has returned to and exceeded pre-pandemic levels for some time. In 2019, the last full year before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the index averaged 92.6. In 2020, when South Africa's economy contracted by 6.4%, it averaged 86.5. And that's today's news. What is a plant breeder's right? That is our topic of discussion today, and we would like to welcome David Cochrane from Spoor Fisher. David, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks very much.
Yes. So what is a plant breeder's right?
Well, a plant breeder's right is a right that's granted for a new variety of plant. And usually that new variety will have been bred by a breeder, like through normal crossbreeding. Or sometimes it might even be a genetically engineered plant. But obviously a lot of time and effort goes into developing these new variety of plants. So once someone has, or a breeder has developed a new variety of plant, what they can do is they can apply to the Plant Breeders' Rights Office in South Africa and get what's called a Plant Breeders' Right to protect this new variety. So that when they license it, they can get higher license fees and also make sure that they can protect it so that other people can't use it without their permission.
So what can happen if a plant breeder's right is infringed?
Well, the plant breeder's right owner can go to court, and what they can do is they can apply for an interdict to get the plant material handed over. But it's not only the harvested material; it's also the plants themselves. So, if a farmer, for example, has planted a huge crop, be it particularly when it comes to like vines, if they've got a whole farm planted and it's infringing, what they'll have to do is they'll have to remove all of that and it'll have to be destroyed.
Sure.
So the consequences of infringing a plant breeder's right can be quite very heavy, particularly for farmers or growers. Yeah.
So what advice do you have? How can we avoid that?
The first thing is that whatever plant material you're buying, make sure that you're getting it from a genuine supplier, a reputable source. And when you do buy your plant material, you can ask whether or not there is a plant breeder's right, and if there is a plant breeder's right, you can make sure that that the supplier confirms that they do have the right to supply the material to you. If you're unsure about it, you can also do a search at the Plant Breeder's Rights Office to check whether or not there is a right covering that variety.
How long does a plant breeder's right last for?
Lasts a long time. So for trees and vines, it's 25 years from the date in which the right is granted. And for all other varieties, it's 20 years.
Sure, that's quite a time.
The date, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it really is. It gives the breeder a long time to recoup the time and effort and money that's been put into developing that new variety.
So what happens when these rights come to an end?
So when the rights come to an end, you can no longer be sued under the plant breeder's rights. So it really becomes open that anybody's entitled to use that variety. But you still got to be quite careful because a lot of the people who develop these new varieties or supplying them, they don't only protect their material by way of the plant breeder's right, they also protect the material contractually. So there might be contractual obligations of what you're not allowed to do with the material even after the plant breeder's right has come to an end. So you've still got to be careful after the plant breeder's right comes to an end that you don't that you're not in breach of a contract.
Right. So what happens in the industry? Do people renew these rights, or what do they do?
Yeah, so that's why you've got that contractual agreement, contractual protection, because after the 20 years or the 25 years, you can't renew the plant breeder's right. It's now gone. So that the right is gone, but there could still be contracts protecting the material.
David, I'm sure there's a process involved. Just go through it briefly with us.
Yeah, so plant breeder's rights are handled within the Department of Agriculture in South Africa. And so what you do is you go to the Plant Breeder's Rights Office, and there's an application form that you need to fill in, and then there's a questionnaire that you fill in, and it's really about the different characteristics of the variety. So what it looks like, if it's a new type of vine, for example, you'll describe what the leaves look like, what the fruit looks like, and what makes it different to other varieties that are already known. So it's a description of your variety. There's an application fee, but most importantly, there's also a fee for the examination of the variety. Right. So the Plant Breeder's Rights Office actually wants to examine the variety to make sure that it is the same in the way that you've described it, and that it is different from varieties that are already out there. Because you can only get protection for a new variety. If it's an old variety that's already known, there's no protection available.
So the particulars should be on the Department of Agriculture's website, I assume.
Yes, they are. Right. Yeah. Okay. And they're very good. And it sometimes takes quite a long time to get the right granted.
I'm sure.
Because depending on the type of plant, they'll want to see it for 2 growing seasons, for example. And for trees, it might take a long time for them to grow.
So they need proof.
They need proof, yeah. But it's a very well-run department. and the process gets followed, and eventually the right is granted.
David, thank you very much for discussing this with us. A very interesting topic. I'm sure we'll see you again.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. David Cochrane from Spoor Fisher.
Jo, nou voel ek vars.
Jy lyk vars. Waar was jy?
Ek het 'n dip gaan vang.
Jy geswem?
Nee, 'n MSD dip.
Wow. Ek het self 'n dous gevat.
Ooh, lekker middagslaapie.
Nee, 'n MSD-dous. Ek voel so vars soos koeimelk.
Liewe maggies, is ons by 'n spa?
Ja, lyk my sy taktiek is om al ons bekommernisse te delete.
Ha, jy is nou maar stout vir 'n woordspeling, hè?
Dis 'n kwaliteitproduk. 'n Bees moet dit daarom sê.
Hou jou diere dankbaar.
Goeiedag, in die week se termynmarkverslag sien ons dat die witmielieprys gedaal het met 1.4%, die geelmielieprys daal met 0.2%, die koringprys het gedaal met 0.3% en die sonneblomprys het gedaal met 1.4%. Die prys van sojabone het gestyg met 2.2%, die Brent-olieprys het gedaal met 2%. Die rand het versterk teenoor die dollar met 2.1%, die rand het versterk teenoor die pond met 1.9%, en die rand het ook versterk teenoor die euro met 2.8%.
Welcome to our next item on the menu, and that is Chenin Blanc. Not in your glass, unfortunately, but a discussion with the master, Ken Forrester. Ken, thank you very much for joining us. How big is South Africa's Chenin Blanc industry compared to that of other wine varieties?
Well, welcome and thank you very, very much. Thank you for having me. And yeah, Chenin Blanc is a world on its own for me. But in terms of South African plantings, it currently sits at about 17 or 18% of South Africa's total vineyard is Chenin Blanc. Put into hectares, we're looking at about 18,000 hectares of Chenin Blanc. So that's an extraordinarily large piece of land. If you think of all of that, 18,000 hectares is planted to Chenin Blanc. And it's been the workhorse, it's been the locomotive, it's been the driving force for the wine industry. Chenin Blanc has been for many, many years almost the unsung, unseen hero. The big white wines of the big brands of the past. And I'm going all the way back to Gilbey's big success with Carafino, which you'll be too young to remember, but to come forward to Autumn Harvest and to talk to all those big brands where they sell literally thousands and thousands of gluggable, happy wine. That's been Chenin Blanc for years and years. And not just here in South Africa. California, we look at California today and we think of Chardonnay and we think of Cabernet. There was a time when California didn't have Chardonnay, but they made stuff like Chablis. Do you know you were allowed to make wine in California and call it Chablis? And Paul Masson and Mondavi and these guys were doing jugs, those very elegant kind of liter jugs of Chablis made of 100% Chenin Blanc back in the day. So Chenin's come a long way, and we're now starting to recognize Chenin as Chenin Blanc because, frankly, the youngsters, the new kids on the block, my kids, the kids my son and daughter's age, kids like all of my compatriots' children are making Chenin Blanc. And as far as they're concerned, it's like the most natural thing in the world. Chenin Blanc, oh, of course we make Chenin Blanc. No, of course you make Chenin Blanc. And there's literally, every single time I go and look at a store, I see another Chenin Blanc I never knew before. There's something new happening and so many absolutely delicious wines. And that's going to matter.
So how has production grown over the years?
We've measured and we've checked and we know that Chenin Blanc year on year has grown in consumption by nearly 7%. Now, right through this pandemic, in a year like we've just had, Chenin Blanc has grown 7%. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's amazing. That's really, really good for Chenin Blanc. And it's no surprise because, as I say, you see more and more Chenin Blanc. It's available at all price points, and people are making exceptional wine out of Chenin Blanc, delicious wine.
Ken, we live in such a diverse country with so many production regions. What areas in South Africa are best suited for Chenin Blanc production?
It's such a lovely, lovely question. Hard to answer. And I've got to say that I do wear a Stellenbosch hat because this is where I'm at home. But you've got to take that off and look around and see what else is happening in the world of Chenin. And Chenin is a great transposer. If you write music for the piano and you have to transpose it for the violin, Chenin Blanc does that. It transposes the soil, and it'll tell you what the soil is where it's grown. And if you go to the Swartland, you'll find Chenin Blanc with a particular flavor, with a particular character. And if you go up to the Breederivier Valley, in the Breederivier, you'll find Chenin Blanc with a particular character. And if you go to Paarl on the Paardenberg, you see there's a particular character. If you go Bottleray Hills in Stellenbosch, within Stellenbosch, go to the Bottleray Hills and come to Helderberg, and you have two completely different characters being shown by the difference in the geology that takes place between Bottleray Hills and the Helderberg. Chenin is a really sensitive grape that will show you the differences about where it's planted. And I think that's so exciting.
And how do we compare internationally?
Globally, in terms of plantings, it's a nice, easy sum. We're about 50% of the world's total Chenin Blanc production and plantings. Those plantings include France at about 10,000 hectares. Argentina, believe it or not. Did you ever have an Argentinian Chenin Blanc?
No, I didn't.
No, me neither. No, but it's on my bucket list. I'm going to try. 2,000 hectares down there. The United States, 1,900 hectares. And I've had lots of American Chenin, some very good, some really good. And then India, believe it or not, has Chenin Blanc. And I've drunk Chenin Blanc from India in a brand called Sula, Sun. And yes, the Sun makes great wine. Australia has Chenin Blanc, and Spain. So those are the dominant Chenin Blanc producers around the world. But South Africa, easily 50%, half of the world's total Chenin Blanc production. So we have vines. We have each year we have more and more older vines. The Old Vine Project has been very, very important for Chenin Blanc, or perhaps Chenin Blanc has been very, very important for the Old Vine Project, because the majority of the Old Vine Project has become Chenin Blanc. And you're seeing more and more vines being recognized as old vines over 35 years old, getting that special label on the bottle to tell you that you're dealing with registered old vines. And those older vines do provide more concentration. We feel that they do provide more intensity and a better quality fruit for production.
Now, as I said, you are a master. So what do you look for in good Chenin Blanc?
You know, I've tried not to be a judge. I don't get to judge any wines. I'm happy to judge my own wines. And I'm always on the lookout for what other people are doing, just on the basis that there's not just one good wine. There are lots of good wines. And depending on the time of day, depending on what you're eating, what you're doing, if you're watching rugby, if you're having a chat to some old friends, if you're just having a casual lunch, what is it? Do you want a glass of wine and you want something serious, or do you want something light and frivolous? And Chenin Blanc can provide all of that. And at the end of the day, you know, even when people say to me, you know, what's good wine? How would I know good wine? And I'll say to them, do you like what's in your glass? Because if you like what's in your glass, trust your palate, believe in your palate, believe in your taste, enjoy that. And there are so many wonderfully delicious Chenin Blanc wines out there to be had, and it's superb pricing. You know, honestly, between 70 and 180 rand, there's a world of choice of beautiful wines.
And that was the well-known Ken Forrester chatting to us today about Chenin Blanc in South Africa.
BKB, die betroubare tuiste van landbou. BKB, the trusted home of agriculture.
Goeiemôre en weer eens welkom aan al die kykers wat vanoggend op Plaas TV ingeskakel is. Ek is Jean de Villiers en hiermee bring ek vir die week se opkomende veilings. Ons kop hierdie week se kalender met 'n opwindende Bonsmara veiling wat môre op die 15de Februarie sal plaasvind. Dit is die produksieveiling van Essekof Bonsmaras wat op die plaas Opraap net buite Klerksdorp gehou sal word. Die aanbod op die veiling sluit 35 bulle en 150 kommersiële vroulike diere in. Hierdie veiling word deur Vleisentraal Klerksdorp aangebied met Johan van der Nest as afslaer op die dag. Dan op die 16de Februarie hou die Donie Merino Genootskap hulle nasionale veiling by die Bloemfontein skougronde. Die aanbod op die veiling sluit 40 ramme in en die veiling sal aangebied word deur OVK. Dan op die 17de Februarie hou die Nuwe Elkheid Bonsmara groep hulle produksieveiling by die Warmbad Veemark in Bella Bella. Die aanbod op die veiling sluit 25 bulle, 20 vroulike stoetdiere, 250 vroulike aanteeldiere in alle produksiestadiums, asook 100 slagvee en 200 speenkalvers in. Die veiling word aangebied deur Vleisentraal Bosveld met Maike Lassie as die afslaer op die stoetdiere en Stefan Greiling as afslaer op die slagvee. Ons sluit aan die week se kalender met die Hoogland Studiegroep Simmentaler en Simbra Jongbul skou af. Hierdie skou word op die 19de Februarie by Ashtonville in Bethlehem aangebied. Daar sal op die skou 'n gelukkige trekking vir alle skoolkinders wees om 'n kans te staan om met 'n Simmentaler en Simbra vers weg te stap. Maar jy moet teenwoordig wees om 'n kans te staan om te wen. So die studiegroep nooi dus alle seuns en dogters uit om hierdie skou saam met jou pa of ma by te woon. En dit is al van my kant vir die week, tot volgende week. Totsiens.